Great. Well, welcome everybody. Happy New Year.
You as
Me
well.
too.
I know. I don't know why I'm only in the middle, but I'm here.
It's all about you, Brenda. You're right in the middle. All right. Well, the hour being 7:30, though we don't have everybody, we do have a quorum. Oh, Stefan just got on. Looks like we're good.
And Rachel got on too, so it looks like we're
Oh,
full board.
oh yeah. Scroll all the way down. Looks like a full house. See, beginning of the year, starting off great. Well, welcome everybody. We will call to order the Board of Health meeting for the 7th of January, 2025. You can believe it. First thing on our agenda is the approval of minutes from the December 10th meeting. I know they were sent out in advance. Were there any comments, questions, edits, concerns? That was pretty.
I didn't find it.
I wasn't here, but I didn't find any typos.
Great, nor did I. And I think the wording was transferred over to the draft revision of the body art regulations. So I think that all matches up. I think we're in good shape. Okay. If there weren't any comments, and we like to entertain a motion to accept the minutes.
Okay, I'll make a motion in regards to the minutes, to the approval of minutes from the December 10, 2024 Board of Health meeting. The Board of Health approves the minutes as written.
Great. And motion made. Do we hear a second?
I can second it.
Perfect. Motion made and seconded. We will vote. We'll start with Brenda
Aye.
and Mona
Aye.
and Rachel
Aye.
and Stefan.
Aye.
And I also. So we got 5-0-0. Minutes are accepted. Second on our agenda, 7:35, couple minutes early. Is there anybody on the line for this meeting for the
I
Winter
am.
Estates?
I am.
Hi,
Mr.
John.
Glossa, how are
Hi.
you?
Good. How's everyone? Happy New Year to everybody.
Happy New Year to you. Are we waiting for anybody else? Are we okay to go a couple minutes early?
Well, I don't know. I don't think you need to wait for anyone else.
Perfect.
This is a project. We named it Winter Estates. I guess there's already a Winter Estates, but if you look in the sort of advertisements, we've said it's the property next to and to the rear of 215 Winter Street, and it's a subdivision. So I think Megan's going to put the plan up for me, but it's a subdivision, a definitive subdivision of land. And what the state statute, right? Chapter 41, section 81U. And this language is mimicked in the Walpole Planning Board regulations and in every town's regulations. And that is essentially that the Board of Health has to send a recommendation. And basically, it's kind of either approval of the plan, disapproval of the plan, but a disapproval has to cite certain reasons why the board feels that either all or part of the property is not suitable for development. Now, generally, that turns into whether areas will perk or be suitable for septic systems. These two houses will be connected to sewer, so we're not worried about that. And I know from reading what the board's concerns were is that the area, as you can see, it's 7 acres of land, about an acre and a half or so of that is a large wetland that connects to the cedar swamp in the back of the property. And we do plan to cross a part of that property to get the house to the left on lot 1, and then another part of that wetland, I'm sorry, to get to the house on number 2, on lot 2. Now, I don't want to sort of bore you with this, but there is provision in the wetland regulations, in the state wetland regulations, that basically it's called the limited project. Basically, it says if you can't get from a public street to upland land without crossing wetlands, you have the right to cross the wetlands. So that's what we are doing here. We're using what's called a limited project to cross the wetlands and obtain access to these 2 parcels of upland that are on the property. So the one to the left, which is lot 1, that house and that where that driveway is, and the reason we have the driveways like that is because the fire department wants us to have a turnaround at the end there. That's a good 8 to 10 feet above the wetlands. So we're not really sort of down like, near the swamp or anything like that. And on the other side, lot 2, that's even higher. That is, sorry, that's like 12 feet above the wetlands on the right side. It's kind of almost like a little esker that sticks up out of the on the topography there. So when the planning board read your comments, they're taking it, I wouldn't say absolutely, but they're sort of taking it as a denial from the Board of Health. So I could be reading this wrong, but I don't think that the board really meant to deny this project, but it is something that I can read it to you if you haven't seen it already, but basically it says that when a definitive subdivision is submitted to the planning board, a copy shall be filed with the Board of Health or Board of Health officer. Such Board of Health or Board of Health officer within 45 days shall report to the planning board in writing approval or disapproval of said plan. And in the event of disapproval, shall make specific findings as to which, if any, area shown on the plan cannot be used for building sites without injury to the public health. So I can understand if you said, hey, we don't want, John's client to stick a house in the middle of those wetlands. But I think, and what I'm asking is if the board could sort of send a revised letter that says, well, we're not denying this project, we're not disapproving this project, but we do, have concern about, any work within a wetland or something like that. But this has been in front of the Conservation Commission. We've already had one hearing. They understand their regulation regarding wetlands, and we are, I'm 99% sure or comfortable that the Conservation Commission is going to give us approval to make those 2 crossings. The other side of that, or the other thing, if there is a little bit of not complete agreement on whether those are both limited projects, but so in Massachusetts, you can fill up to 5,000 square feet. The local conservation commission of wetland, the local conservation commission to give you approval of that. So even if you said, well, one's a limited project and the other isn't, and the 2 of the crossings together don't add up to 5,000 square feet. So the crossings are for the driveways to get to the 2 houses. As far as drainage, we're following essentially the Massachusetts Stormwater Management regulations because, and in fact, we're even beyond that because for 2 reasons. First of all, the planning board's regulations require us to match not only the rate of runoff, but the volume of runoff, where the state regulation doesn't apply here because we're less than 5 dwelling units. But we are following their guide because we're also uh, filed a land disturbance permit with the Conservation Commission. So the Conservation Commission has 4 bites of the apple here. We filed for the roadway, which is that first piece which comes down and sort of ends where the abutters properties are. And then we filed for each individual lot. So there's 3 filings, and then we filed a land disturbance permit, the whole project. So there's 4 filings in front of the Conservation Commission. The drainage, which is, probably the most um, the biggest aspect of this that we want to make sure gets done right. You can see those trenches that we're putting along the edge of the driveways, and the houses everything will um, shed into these infiltration trenches and go back into the ground, so that neither the rate nor the volume of runoff will be more in the built condition than in the existing condition. So anyway, to go back where I started, that's kind of what we're asking, is if the board would sort of refine their letter to the planning board to indicate that you're not necessarily or you're not sending a disapproval of the project. So if you have any questions, I can answer, but right now the planning board's kind of saying to me, John, how can we approve this project without, or with what the Board of Health has sent to us? And it's a statutory requirement. This isn't, the same as sort of providing comments for a site plan or a zoning board hearing or something like that. This is a statutory requirement under the state law that the Board of Health provide, as I said, either approval or disapproval of the plan.
Thank you, John. That's great explanation. One question I had is the 2 areas that you say were the passing over the wetlands. Is the plan to bridge those, or is that the landfill that you're talking about?
No, they're be filled, and then they would be replicated, though. You can see the little areas with the sort of that looks like hatching. Yeah, right there. So that's a replication area, and then on the right side, that's a replication area. So every square foot that we fill in, we replicate. And I know lots of towns, they say, well, replicate 1 to 5 or 2 to 5. But in talking with Landis, with the Walpole Conservation Commission agent, she sort of points us away from doing that, because typically that creates more destruction of land, which would otherwise not be touched, because in Walpole, you have a 25 no disturb area along the wetlands. So to go in there and try to make it into wetlands doesn't really, you're going in there and you're cutting down all the trees and everything to plant trees and everything. So it doesn't make any sense. It's already sort of protected by the local regulation. And Walpole's not the only town that has that. Just about every town now has some sort of no disturb area along the edge of the wetlands. So we are disturbing some, and then we are creating some replication, but we are working very closely with Landis, your agent, and the Conservation Commission to make sure that this gets done right. And not to try to sell you anything, but other developers came to me. This land actually, by zoning, could be a 5-lot subdivision, but that would create some huge um, um, alterations to the property. So I was able to, with the help of the past owners, find a buyer who, it's the Giosos, who are a Walpole family. They live up next to Adams Farm. So they're just looking for 2 house lots. They have 2 sons, and they want, one for Marco and one for Daniel. And that's what we're trying to do here, is just create 2 lots, and ask the planning board to waive, strict requirements for the um, uh, size of the roadway and that sort of stuff. But at the same time, we're going above and beyond with protecting the wetlands from both water quantity and water quality by making sure all of the rainfall gets infiltrated back into the ground.
See. Okay. Appreciate it again, John. Any questions, maybe on the board?
I mean, I have concerns, not questions, this is like, we've seen plans in the past that are within the 100-foot buffer zone, and the reason why we make the comments, that we have long-standing stance that we are opposed to any construction within the 100-foot buffer zone. It's a kind of like we're saying our part that we are totally opposed, and we're kind of like laying it in a conservation's committee's lap, that it's up to you to approve or not. But we usually, again, like, I've never seen like houses being built like you're going inside the wetland, like we're building inside the wetland, you know what I mean? So it's like the whole project isn't there, it's not even like part of it. And it's just, this is, it brings big concerns to me.
So I think, Mona, I think the whole thing is, it is meeting the conservation requirements. And like John was saying, I think we can definitely still make our comments that the board is, has a long stance on mosquito mitigation and everything like that, should the plan be approved. But I think in order to deny it, we have to have some opposition regarding public health regulations. So unfortunately, again, the mosquito mitigation, I think we can definitely strongly encourage that. But if they're meeting conservation setbacks, unless it was like a septic property and they weren't meeting our local regulations, health related, Board of Health related, I think unfortunately we really can't deny it.
So why are they requiring us to either approve or deny the plan? Like,
So it's not really the conservation, it's just per Mass General Law, any definitive subdivision is required. It's kind of strange, but the Board of Health has to either approve or deny it. So I think the main thing is we can approve it with the encouragement of our standing motion when it comes to mosquito mitigation, and building within proximity of the wetlands. But unfortunately, we really can't deny it unless it's not one of the health codes being met.
mhm. I see.
So this is with the planning board, Mona. This is um, what's the Board of Health is going to be sending to the planning board. You can send to the Conservation Commission, as I said, that's not governed by statute. By statute, you can send to the Conservation Commission and say, look, we're totally against filling in the wetlands to make those driveways. So that's not really what's at issue here. It's that there's a statute, there's a requirement in the law that says the Board of Health has to send an approval or a disapproval to the planning board. And in my experience, that generally has to do with the ability of the land to provide sewage disposal. But we're not worried about that here because we're going to be connecting these two houses to the sewer. So we have no sewage disposal. Of course, if you say we don't want to see any houses built in the wetlands, that's say that to the planning board, that's fine also, but because that just would never be done. I mean, so
And
that's,
Mona, just so you know, and the rest of the board, you did make comments to conservation pertaining this plan and kind of the concerns that were vocalized regarding the proximity to the wetlands.
Right.
Our motion could be around the terms of, though we have a longstanding stance limiting and avoiding building in the wetlands, there are no Board of Health impacts with this project. So we would support from that approach. I mean, it wouldn't be something that it's not a Board of Health issue that we're kind of managing or giving a variance for, something to that effect. Again, where the whole idea is we do not is a stance. We don't like the building because it does impact, and obviously this is going to be a kind of a health concern for folks who are surrounded by wetlands in this some of these examples. So that's something they have to deal
Mhm.
with. It again, not our case to fight. They need to know that going into it. But
Right.
okay, any any other comments, questions, or anything for John or for the board? With that information and John's explanation, anybody want to entertain a motion? I'd started one. If it's okay, I can continue it. I'll make a motion regarding the planning board's request for comments for the Winter Estates definitive subdivision. The Board of Health has a longstanding stance against any build and within the 100-foot buffer of the wetlands. This project, as described, is taking into account some protection of the wetlands, and there are no Board of Health regulations or areas of concern that would prevent us from approving this at that level. Think that'll work?
Yeah, I think the main thing is just the board needs to approve it, and also
Okay,
just, we would be amending the comments that we initially,
perfect.
which it looks like, let me just see. It was on, from,
November 19th.
yes.
Perfect. Okay. So regarding the November 19th uh, comments, we will amend to include the approval of or the approval of the project with those concerns and conditions that we mentioned. Seem okay? All right. Motion's been hastily made. Anybody want a second?
I'll second that.
I'm sorry. Did somebody? Yes.
Yep, I'll second it.
Oh, thanks, Evan. Okay. Motion made and seconded. Any other comments? And we will vote. So we'll start with Brenda.
I'm going to abstain from this vote.
Okay. And then we'll go to Rachel.
Aye.
So Rachel, did we miss you?
Oh, could you not hear me? Aye.
Sorry.
Sorry. Sorry.
So you support?
Yes, aye. Sorry.
Aye. All right. And Stefan
Aye.
and Mona.
I shall abstain.
And I will obviously I will support it. So that leaves us at 3, 0, and 2 abstained.
Thank you, members of the board. Thank you,
Thanks, John.
Mr. Chairman.
That
Thanks a lot.
passes it, right?
It does, yeah.
Okay. I just
Yeah,
want to make sure.
again, I totally understand everybody's perspective, and I know that
I know the family now that he mentioned it. That's the only reason I'm abstaining.
okay. Well, very good.
Okay,
Yeah, and that our hope to limit building in wetlands altogether, but so I appreciate that, everybody. Okay,
all right, thank
Mr.
you.
Glossa, anything else for on your end?
No, I don't have anything else tonight, so nothing coming forward in the near future. So, but hopefully I'll see you soon.
Thanks so much, sir. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks, John.
All
Thanks,
right.
Melissa. Thanks, Megan.
Right. Now then we have 7:40, a little bit late. Apologize. Heidi Street septic variance request. All right.
I see Jamie on the call, so I'll let him take over and explain the request for 3 Heidi Street.
Thanks, Megan. Good evening, Jamie Bissonette. I'm a professional engineer with Zenith Consulting Engineers. We have a variance request from a local bylaw that has the requirement of 150 feet to a water course, is the way that it's worded. We're hoping to get a reduction down to 135 feet. And I'd like to explain as to why. We're looking to permit and build a single family house on Heidi Street. Part of the process is we're going to be improving a section of the road to obtain frontage and construct drainage and the single family house with the driveway. That being said, when Landis, the conservation agent, recently walked the line with our wetland scientist, there were some fringe areas that they decided to encompass into the wetlands that moved the line 15 to 20 feet. That being said, in speaking with her and the town engineer, going over the plan and the changes with the line itself, we discussed, moving the system, which would cause more tree disturbance, tree removal, and earth disturbance. And, in going over it, we also discussed the state act requiring 50 feet to a wetland. This doesn't have any surface water supply protection or tributary protection to it. So in speaking with them, they felt that it was reasonable to come down and talk with your health agents and try to get on the agenda to discuss the waiver of 15 feet to try to minimize the overall earth disturbance and tree disturbance on site. They felt that it wasn't a waiver that was ridiculous or offensive in any way. And I agree with them. We could move the field so that we don't need the requirement. We could meet the requirement. It's not like this is a make or break for a buildable lot. It's more of we're going to be 135 feet away on the other side of a house, on the other side of drainage and a driveway, and we feel that this is still meeting the full health protection requirement that the Board of Health is looking for. So something else to note is that we are proposing a Presby EnviroSeptic, which is an IA style system. There's plenty of studies out there that show that it does increase treatment and does a better job than your standard stone and pipe style system as well. So it's better for the environment. But hopefully the board will consider this and ask me any questions that you have, and I'll try to answer.
Melissa, any concerns at all?
No, so they're meeting state code, obviously. We have more strict regulations locally, so they are meeting it. Typically, with new construction, we're a little more leery with approving variances. That being said, it seems like they've done their due diligence and have reached out to conservation as well as engineering. And it seems like obviously they're 15 feet shy of our regulation, but definitely exceeding the setback through the state. So I don't have a concern with this issue or this variance request, sorry.
Forgive me for asking, what's the state setback you said?
50 feet in this case.
Oh, wow. Oh, wow.
Yeah, so we're still over 2.5 times the state requirement.
Right.
Gotcha. I see, yeah, 2.5 times. Okay, great, appreciate that. Any other questions? Anything from the board? All right, anybody want to entertain a motion?
I can entertain a motion in regards to the septic plan waiver for 3 Heidi Street. Since there are no specific concerns, the Board of Health would like to grant the waiver / variance from section 767-3 for the town of Walpole septic system regulations in order to reduce the leaching field distance from the water course from 150 to 135 feet.
Great, motion been made. Any seconds or any comments? I will second it. Any other comments, questions?
Nope.
Then we will vote. We'll start. How about, let's get to this, sorry. Rachel,
Aye.
Missed you again, Rachel.
Oh my goodness. I'm having trouble with my camera now. I'm having trouble with the microphone. Aye.
There we go. Gotcha. Mona,
Aye.
Stefan,
Aye.
and well, left is Brenda.
Aye.
Great, and I also. So we'll make the amendment, the variance from 135 to from 150 down to 135 feet, taking into account the additional protections of the trees and land disturbance. So the motion has been passed.
Thank you very much. Have a great night.
Appreciate you coming in. Thank you so much.
Thank you. All right, bye-bye.
Thanks, Jamie.
Thank you.
All right, next on our list, looks like we have body art regulation revision.
Yes, so it's pretty much the same thing that we saw or discussed at the last Board of Health meeting. We did add the tattooing of the eye um, that Stefan had brought to our attention. And I do see Sophia on the call. So Sophia is the body artist who is interested in doing the introduction of saline. So I'm hoping that maybe she can give a little presentation to the board and kind of give some more information on that as well. So Sophia, no pressure.
Megan, do you mind, like, before, I just have a quick, I need a clarification in
Absolutely.
with the introduction of saline or other liquids, does that include like, sterile alcohol, like in hydrogen peroxides? And sometimes these are used. Is this
I
like,
think
do we specify like what other liquids are?
I think what this would be referring to would be like anything besides pigments, like body art pigments. So like
Okay.
the ink itself.
Oh, okay. So it has nothing to do with the sterile solutions that they usually use to clean up the wounds or like the piercing areas or whatever for the
Yeah.
tattoo.
Yeah.
Because they have to sterilize the area before they do anything, right? So
Yeah,
this,
absolutely. That's not included in
right,
this
okay,
regulation. Yep,
okay, great, thank you.
of course.
Hi, you guys. My name is Sophia Pantazopoulos. I'm not sure. Are you able to see me on the screen currently? Okay,
We
because
are.
I actually haven't used Zoom too often. I tend to use Google Zoom most of the time, or Google, I'm not even sure what it's called. Google Meets. I'm currently I've been a permanent makeup artist for the last 5 years. I'm from Walpole, Massachusetts, but I moved to Los Angeles for about 4.5 years, and I got into the permanent makeup industry. And now I've been a trainer. I'm a registered agent trainer for the Lift Tattoo Removal Company, and I've been with them for the last 2 years. And I'm basically taking all my education from Los Angeles and trying to bring that over here because there's definitely a market for it in this area. One thing I wanted to clarify is we never will be injecting any solution to the skin. We are using the same technique that we would be doing on any version of permanent makeup, just with a different solution. So that's one thing that I really wanted to clarify because I know online and through just like basically just not being educated properly. Some people think that we are using injections or a needle to inject the skin with this saline solution, and that is not happening. I am a trainer for Lift Tattoo Removal, which is a saline solution that they've formed. I'm not sure what other artists are doing in the area, and that's probably why something is being misunderstood here. But I do know in different parts of Massachusetts and different counties, they do have technicians for lift tattoo removals. And on top of that, different technicians have been taught differently from a different company. So that's where things are going to get a little tricky here, in my opinion, just because people have different regulations, and on top of that they're being taught differently with a different solution. My solution, and with most solution, it is going to be a sterile saline solution that is pre-modified, that I'm not changing anything about the solution itself. I'm just taking it out of the bottle, putting it in a pigment ring, basically absorbing it with my needle that I would tend to do with any other pigment, and then infusing the skin with that saline solution. So I like to use the word infusing when I'm doing permanent makeup because it's not an injection and it's not necessarily a tattoo either. We're saturating an area. So what I'm working on is work that's basically been botched or oversaturated or is been done with laser already, tattoo removal done with laser, but there's still that white cast. And what's the thing is really cool about lift tattoo removals is I can actually remove titanium dioxide from the inks in with basically tattoo inks compared to laser that cannot. Laser is going to basically bounce off of that white ink and it's not going to get removed, it's just going to stain the skin. So most of my clients, it's either they're going to come to me after they've done laser treatments for tattoo removals, or they're coming to me because they have botched work. They might be a previous client of mine that I can be working on as well. So it's kind of coming from all different scenarios, but most of the time it's previous work that's been done that's just oversaturated and we need to lighten it before I go over the skin again. So it's a little background. I would love to answer more questions too as we go, but I tend to overeducate and then it doesn't make any sense. So you guys just let me know.
Sophia, just to kind of confirm something we talked about too in the inspection, that I think might be helpful for the board. So there's no different equipment, correct? It's the same needle that you would be using, and then you're not going any deeper into the skin than you would be for the permanent makeup as well, correct?
That is correct, yes. So we always stay above the epidermis level of the skin, and it's actually going to be no different needle than the needle that I would use for ombre brows, lip blushing. The only difference is the difference of needles. So some people use like a 7 RL or a 3 RL or 1 RL, but that's the only difference. There's actually, it's the same equipment, same technique, just a different solution.
Is there anything, so the difference in the depth that you're talking about, um, how do is that something that should be included in regulations, or how do we distinguish between different operations like that?
I think what would be helpful, honestly, is if we could regulate lift saline tattoo removals compared to just saline tattoo removals in general, because there are different techniques around the world. And in Massachusetts or in Los Angeles, it would be better if there was just like one version of a treatment, I would say. I don't know for sure what county they're in, but I do know another artist that is training others basically to use salts, and they're basically modifying something out of the ordinary. They're creating an experiment of their own. That is not what's happening over here, and that should never be done. And I know a lot of different people have been educated in different ways just due to that fact, but in Los Angeles and through the company, they have an online training as well. That is not what's going on here. They've created a safe solution that's going to be implanted in the skin, basically, or even just a topical on top of the skin that's just absorbed. And what happens is it's all through osmosis. Basically, it's a scientific method, but it's just taking a higher concentration of a solution to a lower concentration. It's going to blend inside the skin. This will happen way beneath our eyes. We won't even be able to tell. It's going to form a scab. And with that scab, the ink basically will come out of the skin. So that's how the removal is done. I'll never take a laser to the skin or cutting off any of the skin. All I'm doing is basically tattooing over another tattoo that's already been healed and taken care of. And I'm just infusing the skin with that saline solution. As 2 weeks goes on, natural healing will go on. The natural way of life will just, the scab will fall off. And that's how a lightning effect is done.
So under the restrictions, is there anything again, we're looking at probably number 10 is the one in particular that we're looking at in this case. Would we include something about um, the injection at the dermis level, or would there be, because these are the restrictions, we would never, I don't think we would want to say this is approved, or this application or this trade name or is approved. We would
Mhm.
say more of what we're trying to restrict. So under that number 10, if that's kind of the way that, if it's vague, and when we're saying introduction of um, into this, we're not even saying anything about under the skin, we're just saying introduction of any fluids or solutions. Maybe that's where we would have to put something, a little detail around it to say, yeah, like exactly like injections, and if that's even true. I'm not. I mean, definitely would lean on you again. This is something we're kind of new to us, but what the wording would be that would prevent these types of techniques to be used that you're considering not to be the best practice.
Of course, I think that definitely injection, since we're never should be injecting of the skin. On top of that, the other liquids, I know that's kind of it's been put in there, but we would never use any other liquids, and I think that's important to probably put in there. You should not be injecting anything within the skin. But on top of that, I guess it would be the dermis layer because we are able to, within our license, work on that epidermis, but we cannot go deeper.
Okay, so
Yeah,
I
I
have,
agree. I feel like, thank you, Sophia, for being here and educating us. But I agree. It's like you're doing everything right, but I think when we create regulations, it has to be applicable to everyone. So I think my only hesitation is just making sure that the language covers it. So if someone is doing something incorrectly, they're not allowed to do that. Also, that component of education, since it is a new practice, we have obviously the layer in our regulations that require certain educations for piercings, for, if you're doing tattooing. So I guess it's unfortunate because it seems like it's fairly new. So I don't necessarily know if there's that standard. And like you said, you came from California and you're kind of bringing your knowledge here. And unfortunately, it doesn't like line up with like the classes that are here. So I don't want you to be penalized for that because you've clearly done the schooling and you have the experience, but it's like, how can we make that so it is like legitimized here, I guess?
Definitely. No, and I think being regulated is actually it's an important aspect to this industry as because it's just up and coming, so there's not many regulations going on, and it's based off county to county or state to state. On top of that, I think the misunderstanding is definitely the injection of the skin because we're never injecting the skin. And that's where no one's ever going to be injecting the skin, whether they're a tattoo artist or even a medical esthetician, because you just want to be injecting saline. I think it's important to put that on there and definitely the verbiage. I'm gonna have a hard time understanding just because this is new for me as well. I will be honest, this is my first Board of Health meeting. So I'm excited for the future, but I'm definitely new to this and I feel as though there's certain things that could be done better, but I'm here to be a part of it and whatever we can do to make that happen.
okay, so Sophia, I have a question for you. Um, so you said usually you use in order to mix, your dye with the saline solution, you do use a needle and a syringe, right? But
Never
when,
a syringe, sorry. No.
okay, what do you use
I
exactly? I'm
use
sorry.
It's gonna be a tattoo machine that comes with a cartridge. In that cartridge, it's just a needle. So that needle gets implanted in the tattoo machine, which is gonna be pre-wrapped, pre-sterilized. And then I'm taking that tattoo machine, once I turn it on, that little needle cartridge, it actually works as a little vacuum. So it's absorbing the ink out of the little container, whether it be the tattoo removal solution, which is the saline solution, or it's a pigment ink. It's gonna work the same way. It's just gonna absorb it out of a container and then I go on the skin and I firmly stretch it and I slowly work on the skin with the same technique that I would do with ombre powder brows, similar to microblading, except we're using the tattoo machine, so it's not going to be done manually. And then on top of that, it would be lip blushing. So it's all a similar technique. It's still with the same needles, same tattoo machine. It's just a different pigment in some sense.
Right, right. But okay, so you're using a needle. For me, I don't know, and I have a like a scientific background. The needle, the syringe in this case would be the cartridge because this is what's containing, the chemical, the dye that you're going to be injecting into the skin. So it is an injection because skin infusion, usually it's a non-invasive procedure. It uses a device to exfoliate the skin, to remove debris, um, to infuse whatever, like custom serum. But in this case, a needle is used. Okay, no syringes are used, but for me, the cartridge is replacing the syringe because it's the syringe is the container that contains the liquid or the medicine or whatever is delivered into the body. So it is actually being injected in it is not just infused, even though you guys have to be careful that it doesn't go beyond a certain area in the skin, but it's still getting injected in the skin.
Her licensing is going to allow. I mean, Sophie, you're allowed to do tattooing and permanent makeup. So this is something you're authorized to do. So that equipment and that process, she's already able to do.
Right. The argument is about using the saline solution though, right?
Correct. So tattooing saline, you could tattoo with water. That's fine. It's just she's able to do that. That'd be pretty painful, but she's able to do that. Part of that this regulation because she's doing tattooing and she's doing, permanent makeup. That's what this regulation would be allowing you to do. So whether you're tattooing inks or in this case, if she's doing the water solution at that same level, that's all the same process. What we're trying to avoid is going deeper into and under the skin into the dermis that's manipulating or forming something under the skin to cause a different effect if I'm is that the approach, right? Is that kind of the discussion behind it?
That's
Okay,
how I'm understanding it as well, Richard.
okay,
I think prior to this, we were under the impression that this was being injected farther down in the skin, causing some sort of a wound healing process. After Sophia explained it, it's basically the same exact technique, the same exact equipment that's being used to give a tattoo or the permanent makeup. It's just a different medium being
mhm,
used for a different result. And Sophia, correct me if I'm wrong. I don't think that equipment would allow for you to go any farther than the dermis.
That is correct.
okay,
I think the two piece of this is the injecting to help remove tattoos, but then also injecting to cause some aesthetic effect. So those types of things what we're trying to avoid is putting extra solution somewhere to make them look different or whatever it might be, or
mhm,
as a corollary, just the removal of the tattoo could be the same process, but those are things we're not allowing. So maybe that number 10, that line 10 and 11 are really kind of combining. So it's the injection of saline or other fluids deeper than the dermis layer,
mhm, right.
causing a modification of the body or something that effect. I think
Okay.
that's kind of what we're trying to prevent.
Right, you're absolutely right, Rich. These should be, shouldn't they be under one,
Yeah.
restriction,
Yeah, I
right?
think we wordsmith the number 10 and 11 together,
Him,
and that data is kind of what we're looking to hit
okay,
both explanation that you're injecting past the dermis, but also that you're possibly causing either a modification or something else, and that's vague enough. I think that's what we're trying to avoid is the injection versus the
right.
standard
I mean,
equipment that you
still-
would be using.
it's still an injection, but we just want to make sure that it does not go deeper than the dermis layer.
Yeah,
This,
yeah. I
okay,
mean, injection. You're removing removing a splinter. You're getting into
mhm,
it. So it's a and those with tattoos. No, it's it does. It's an injection you're putting under the skin, but I guess that layer and that concern is what we're worried about
great,
because that would require any of that stuff would require the medical doctor license, but the other was not the medical license.
great. Um, n- okay, so should we then put injection of saline and other liquids, right?
Yep, I think that definitely that the wording we had about the other saline and or in other liquids or semi-liquids, whatever that I think that wording was perfect in there.
Okay,
Yeah,
makes sense. Okay.
yeah,
And I'm not sure if you wanted to add, but I feel like an unregulated liquid is maybe important to add in there because most of our equipment is regulated to some degree. It's FDA approved or whatnot. So
yep.
if it's not regulated, that should not be injected, of course.
I think if we are on your side, you got the other activities are the appropriate solutions. I think we if we keep this vague enough, any solution or fluid or liquid, that's gonna. I mean, that by default is gonna also include. I mean, if you're injecting something like a sterile saline or sterile alcohol, I mean, it's all prevented. That's all things we're restricting.
Mhm.
Seem okay to everybody? Any other edits, comments, liquids, or and I think we had like semi liquids or something. I can't remember what the wording was. I'll have to look at the other, but I think that was kind of the way you had it was really good. So,
Great.
all right, yeah, semi liquid substances, perfect. Yeah, all that stuff. That's kind of covers all of them. Any other comments, discussions? Do we have to, if we submit this as a revision, does it have to go through any other reviews? Does that public notice or any of that stuff, does it? What do we have to do with the next
No,
step?
we would just, make the revision and then, obviously, post these on the website and whatnot. But as long as the board makes a motion, regarding the amendments of the regulations.
Okay.
Injection of saline, other liquid or semi-liquid substance deeper than the dermis layer of the skin into the body for purpose of causing modification.
Okay.
Anything else we should add in there?
Don't believe so.
Okay, great. If we've got a good version of this,
Mhm.
does anybody want to make a motion?
I can make,
Do we need to make a motion or,
Just accept,
Alyssa said that it still needs to be viewed, right?
Well, I think we can make a motion to accept the revisions,
right.
and then it
Okay.
goes. Yeah, then it'll be put into the regs.
Okay. All right, I can make a motion in regards to the body art restrictions, body art establishment regulations, proposed regulations. Um, the Board of Health approves the review of the restriction of the regulations. Do I need to add anything else? With the amendment or
Yeah, I think just accepts the proposed amendments to the regulation.
Amendment.
and accept the proposed amendments to the regulations?
And this is the only section that we modified, correct?
Mhm.
That's correct.
Okay, great. Motion made. Do you hear a second?
I'll second it.
Motion made and seconded, and we will vote. We'll start with Brenda,
Aye.
Mona,
Aye.
Stefan,
aye.
and Rachel.
Aye.
I also. So that's 500. Sophia, thank you so much for your
Yeah.
education and for your time. That's it's great to have you help us out and walk us through it. And best of luck to you.
I appreciate it. And if there's any other questions, I'm more than helpful to help out because it's a new service in this area. So I'd love to educate anybody that I can. So I appreciate you. Thank you so much.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Thanks, Sophia.
Thank you.
Great. So next on our agenda, we have requests for comment on Heidi Street. We
Yep.
did that one. Oh, that's a
We did
septic
Heidi.
variance. Okay, sorry. I thought we
Yeah,
looked familiar, but it is.
Yeah, same plan, just we had comment requests from the planning board for a definitive subdivision. So like Jamie was saying, it's gonna be a single family residence on an existing undeveloped lot. They're gonna make existing, improvements to the existing roadways from Wendy Street in order to create adequate and safe access. We last saw this, project from the planning board as a definitive subdivision in June of 2022. The board voted that they approved the plan, but commented that prior to construction, the proposed septic plan must be submitted to the health department for approval. Um,
There we
so you
go.
can see here, there is the wetlands, that Jamie was describing, the setback from the septic system. And it's just going to be a, single family house right here.
And you guys have reviewed and approved the design internally.
We have not yet. We haven't received it, which we did discuss when Jamie came to us regarding the septic variance. So it would all be, obviously they need to go through the same process and have that plan approved by us and get the construction permit.
Okay. Would we hold off on that one until the next meeting, or could we make a motion that we approve the definitive subdivision um, with condition of septic approval by the board of health?
Yeah, because the planning board, they need the comments
Yep.
before their meeting. However, just a comment saying that the standard practice would still apply.
Okay. Does anyone want to make a motion regarding 3 Heidi Street? I can take this one since I started. Uh, the regarding the planning board's request for comments on definitive subdivision for 3 Heidi Street, the Board of Health um, does not have any comments and any additional comments, and would approves this contingent based on the approval of the septic plan by the Board of Health.
Um, sh-
Okay.
should we reiterate the comments from the June 7, 2022 meeting as well? No?
They did make those. That was part of the improvements, right?
Mhm.
The existing
Right.
roadway.
Mhm.
Oh, I thought the existing roadway improvements was added, right? No.
Um,
Mhm.
I don't think there was anything that was really added to this
No.
plan. I think it's been going on for so long, they have to come back in front of the planning board.
was that June
I see.
2022?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Okay.
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 Yeah. All
All right.
right.
So any modification to
Yes,
the motion, or does that seem okay?
Okay.
Okay. Do we hear a second?
I'll second that.
Perfect. And then we'll vote. Mona,
Aye.
Stefan,
Aye.
and then we have Brenda. And
Aye.
thank you. And Rachel.
I,
And I also. So 500. And then the last one is the definitive subdivision, the Elm Street.
Yep, so this is obviously that the Board of Health is not in favor of new construction within the wetlands, has a long-standing stance on protecting the wetlands. If the project is approved, the board urges the applicant as well as future homeowners who adopt standard best practices and work with Norfolk County mosquito control, regular gutter cleaning, proper grading, um, as well as providing adequate street lighting to provide safety.
And looking at the drawing of this one, yeah. So that's in the edge of Turner Pond, I think, right? So
It is.
that current house is near the front of the road. Is that where the current house is?
That's correct.
Okay, is it kind of up on a hill?
It is, yeah, I went out there for perk testing. It's a very steep hill upward, yeah.
Okay, and then the 3 houses are further on back, and they're just lakeside houses, pondside houses. Okay,
Yeah.
gotcha. All 3 they have septic systems, we said.
Yep,
Okay, so really the wetlands in this case is Turner Pond.
that's correct, yep.
Gotcha. Okay, and we're required to make a determination on this one?
Yes, yep.
Request for comment?
can we just
Anybody
say
have
what we
any?
said last year?
What,
So I
That
think the
we
thing
kind
is
of,
kind of getting back to John's discussion earlier in the meeting, it is a definitive subdivision.
yep,
So we have to say you're either in favor or opposed. And ultimately, this is a little bit different because it does have on-site septic or is proposed to have on-site septic. But nothing's been received, correct, Megan?
Nothing's been received. We did go out there for perk testing, so it's not unbuildable in that sense. It was pretty good soil out there.
So they would obviously have to prove to the health department and ultimately the board that they are meeting setback requirements for the on-site septic systems.
And you can see here they are showing where the proposed systems are, so they're kind of awkwardly located on the lot in order to meet that 150-foot septic buffer, which they do have a. It's kind of hard to see here with all the details on the plan, but they are showing that the septic systems meet that 150-foot buffer per the local regs.
gotcha. So
So
this
I think
case,
similar to like the Heidi Street motion that you made, you're approving it, however, it's, contingent upon them following protocol through the health department and plan submittals.
yeah, and this is again not that we have so many different variations of our discussions in wetlands, but even this one seems a little different that we're not really talking about what we consider our traditional wetlands. We're not talking about a low level area that's a wetland. This is a pond, and the idea of putting houses on the edge of a pond is kind of a high interest level. So I could see that being very very important to get those through. Um, Again, the same thing. There's always a risk. We never like to have anything near wetland, but this seems like a different approach, different case. It's not a driving over wetland areas. It's giving yourself a pond view. So, anybody want to make a motion? And I know that the idea of we have to either approve or deny, but again, approving with our standard language if that's something they want to do. But anybody want to make a motion? No takers? All right, then I will make a motion regarding the planning board's request for comments on definitive subdivision for 397 Elm Street, the addition of 3 lots after demolition of one. The Board of Health does reiterate our longstanding um opposition to any building near wetlands within the 100-foot buffer zone. Um, but the Board of Health would approve these new builds provided the mosquito um, mitigation techniques that we include are abide by and conditional approval of the septic systems. Anybody want a second or add?
Do we want to add the lighting again or no?
We were asking for lighting, right?
Right,
Yep.
first paragraph.
So let's reiterate our comments about the suggestions or recommendations, as well as the wetland mitigation and the stance against building. We can kind of word that.
Mm.
Thank you, Brenda. Anybody else? Anybody want a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you. Any other comments? All right, we'll go through it. Mona.
Aye. Aye.
Thank
Did you
you.
hear?
Oh, gotcha that time. Rachel.
Aye.
Perfect. Stefan.
Aye.
And Brenda.
Aye.
And I also. So 500. All right. Anything else on the agenda or anything else we have on our?
No, that's all. It was definitely a longer than usual meeting. So our next
Very.
meeting will be the 21st of January.
Does still work for everybody?
Yes.
I may not be able to attend that meeting on the 21st. So I mean, if you guys have a quorum, just let me know. If not, if you guys like to push it like 1 week, like
Okay.
it's
Do we have?
I'm all set.
I can be there.
So we should be able to do it. Okay.
Yep.
Beautiful. Then we will take a vote to end the meeting. I will start. Mona,
aye.
Rachel,
Aye.
Brenda,
Aye.
and Stefan.
Aye.
Perfect. And I also. So we'll close the meeting at 8:34, and we will catch up with everybody in 2 weeks.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.
Aye. Thank
Thank you.
you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.